right now, well, this video, this one for sure will be about film directing, and the advice, the things I wish I would have known starting film school when I was 18. But still, that would have been helpful even when I graduated film school, because I feel like graduated was being more confused than before. All right, this is what comes to me right now. So thinking about my film school, it was it was a miss, with my film school, because, well, they actually just opened the international division when I joined. I went to Warsaw Film School, and it's actually, the film school is fairly famous, certainly highly praised in Poland. But I went to the international division that was just opened the year I started, which would be at this point about 10 years ago or 11, something like that. So and maybe it wasn't just as good yet, because they were just starting out, not as good as the Polish division. So I'm not gonna say, I'm not gonna be able to share inaccurate information about the state the school is in today. But in any case, so when I joined, I think it confused me more than helped me, because during the first year we were asked to do 5 short films, and we would just be given like the theme, and we have to somehow like express that theme in the short film. 4 of them had to be 2 minutes long. So that was it. Like, you're given a theme in 2 minutes, and you have to tell a story in 2 minutes. And there was another limitation. It was called 7 cuts, I think. So the film could just have 7 cuts, or maybe 7 shots. So it just had 6 cuts and 7 shots, something like that. And that one could have been longer. And it was not helpful for me, because I really I am an introverted person for sure, and at 18 I was also shy. Today I'm still introverted, but I'm not shy, and got over, like, I found a way of how I can function as an introvert, and what does it mean, and how do I communicate with people. I found it. But at 18 you don't know yourself. You lack self-awareness besides anything, and you're shy, and you're not confident, because why would you be confident? You have no experience. So I was inexperienced, not confident, shy, introverted. And so the expectation was that we also find our, that's it, they just give you the theme, off you go, and you can rent equipment. But equipment is like limited. They had at the time maybe like 3 cameras or something. So, and 20 students making these short films at the same time. So yeah, and I was like overwhelmed by the stress of production, and like going to people and asking people to work on my film for free, which would seem normal. But most of the people in my class, well, I would say all of the people in my class, first of all, were way better, like in a better position financially, like literally all. I was also the youngest. Yeah. And the other people from the Polish division, they also were better positioned, because maybe if they were not better off financially, but they at least they had all the connections and all the friends and all the the network, the infrastructure, network, that's the word, right? So, and I didn't have money, didn't have network, and didn't have the social skills. So I was overwhelmed by the production aspect, and I wasn't able to really focus on directing at all, like zero. So by the time that I would manage to like ask someone, can you be the cinematographer for me, and then I would go to ask to rent the camera, but all the camera would be already rented, and then I would have to like find another camera somewhere, and probably like in a paid rental, and things like that. So my films didn't do well. They did very badly actually, and I had to retake one of the film exams, and at some point I even failed a year and was expelled from the film school, but I hold it proudly. I came back and finished it, so yes, I still have the diploma. So yeah, when I say to my acting LU students, when I say, well, I have a diploma, it is true, I did graduate and I do have a diploma in film directing. But it wasn't easily, it wasn't easy. Yeah. And so I didn't finish on directing, focus on directing at all, because I was so, like, I was doing production, and then when I came to directing, I was just like, okay, I mean, the actors together, okay, we're doing mid shot, close up, good. That's it. That was my directing, and I didn't really like. They didn't give us the conditions, uh, to focus on directing. Um, yeah, quite sad. Because I feel like if I were to run a school like this, and maybe if somebody from the Warsaw Film School is listening to me, please maybe take note of it. Um, if they would give us production managers, so take like production students, or like assign some people to do production for us, and like assign cinematographers to work with us and assign actors to work with us. So we don't have to think about production, because that is not the director's job. And even though I know that in the world of like independent filmmaking, yes, oftentimes for the first feature and, for the first, yeah, like big short film, it will be the director who puts their own money, who, who like does production at least partially. It is true, but imagine if you come into this big world of independent filmmaking with already great skills as a film director. Once you've learned that in the film school, if you and then the extra skill you have to learn is production. Whereas here, really, I feel like I've learned a lot about production, was learning nothing about film directing. And then none of that was applicable, because still this film production was in the context of the film school. So it's not quite as relevant to the real world. In any case, like somewhat, I learned to ask people to work for free. That did help actually in life, yeah. But but I didn't learn a lot as a film director, and so I guess the best you can do as a filmmaking student is to really first choose the school correctly, and second, all this idea to like go and learn on the field. I don't know. I mean, I think learn with an iPhone and actors, and that's it. Like the first thing you need, like fuck, fuck good sound, fuck production value. Um, like none of this matters. What you need to learn is like what do different shots mean, and how to talk to an actor, and what is basically visual language. And for that you just need an iPhone, like really, for learning. Later, for people to watch it and to want to see your film, to want to give your attention, to want to pay for it at the cinema, for the festivals to select it, yeah, of course you want production value, but that's next step. Like this is not the essence. If you want to direct, this is later. Like you maybe can find a producer or production manager, or you can learn that, but that's next. Because do you want to be a director or you want to be a production manager? You gotta ask yourself. So the first, now we're getting to the crux of it. The first skill that you want to learn, and how you learn it, that's like framing. That, like, the visual language, using shots. What does it mean? Something I say to my acting students at acting.lu, I say, what separates film from theater, and that is not the only thing that separates film from theater, but that is definitely an essential thing that separates film from theater, is that in cinema we have close-up, and close-up in many ways defines it, right? Because a slight curve like around your mouth, a slight wrinkle on your nose, a slight tweaking of your eyebrow is huge on a close-up. You know, when you go to the cinema, you know, the huge screen that you see, and like the face of a person that's like, yeah, I mean, you see every little detail. That's your close-up, and that's every micro expression becomes visible. You don't get it in theater, even though now some theaters, they also utilize cameras and they do projection of like actors' faces. Yeah, separate subject. But like the traditional, let's say, theater and cinema, that is the huge difference, and that defines the difference in acting, but it also defines the difference in, yeah, in the language of storytelling. We have planes here in Luxembourg, so I don't know, maybe for the production value I'm gonna wait. Well, so in film we have a close-up, and close-up, you know, like when the face of the actor is big on the screen, changes everything in terms of how, in terms of acting, but also in terms of the audience's perception. And so as a film director, the thing you have to learn first, no, no, well, let's say you get to work with semi-good actors, let's say, because talking to actors is a whole different skill that you also must absolutely learn. But let's say, because sometimes you can even get away with not being able to talk to actors, and some directors do get away with that, and they manage to work with good actors who like pull the thing themselves. So that is why I would say, actually, interestingly enough, like the selection of shots is more important than even talking to the actor. Like I know, I know. I know, I guess I will, yeah. I'm saying something very contradictory. I mean, in my work, I don't think either is more important. Like I think they're equally important. But to separate theater from film and to focus on film and what makes film special, it is this selection of shots, it is this visual language. So as a film director, the first thing you want to do is forget production value, forget good sound, forget, actually, even if you can like completely forget at the beginning dialogue, like, and do something that works without, when you don't hear any words, and just tell a story with purely the selection of shots and the stuff that you like show on the screen, it's a great exercise. So the first thing you do is you take a phone, an iPhone, and you go and film stuff. You go and, like, well, I mean, you can also go and film random stuff and do like a Dziga Vertov kind of thing. But for a bit more conventional narrative fiction filmmaking, you might want to ask a few people who do acting, go to, like, I don't know, an amateur theater group. I run one. So you can come to us and ask our people. A lot of them are very willing. Or if you're, you know, a film school student, then probably you have an acting department, and probably they're gonna, you know, be willing to try stuff out. And just give them the complete freedom, right? And do not yet direct the actors, because that's a whole, like, it's a whole different skill. And just best to get like people who can act. So if you manage to get people who can act, so you don't have to tell them what to do, and you can kind of like trust it to them for now, right? As a first step, like let them just act, and you see, okay, it's fairly believable, and let them do their thing. And if they can learn the lines and be exact with the lines, that's important. Not improvisation, because then you won't be able to experiment with the shots and the editing and stuff. But have them learn the lines, be precise with the lines, precise with the movements, be able to do the same movements over and over again, and same like geography and blocking. Geography. what was I gonna say? Choreography, the same choreography, the same lines, and a bit of emotion. And then you go and with your phone and you film them, and you see what difference it makes. And there are different apps that allow to simulate lenses like 50 millimeter, 35 millimeter, 24 millimeter, and yada yada yada. And you see see the difference when you film them, in an American shot. So like, chill here, or the mid close up, or the close up. And how does that change? What does it change? And also, how does the focal length change the thing? Because it changes a lot. So like, let's say you use the longer lens, because it's all about like the audience's perception and the way that the perception of our eyes works. Right? So let's say if I'm looking at the person over there, far away from me, then it's like using, let's say, a longer lens, right? If I want like a mid close up of them, and if I want to see them like this, and they're far away, so your eye, I mean, think about like your eye, right? So you sometimes want to focus, not focus, like, let's say, focus your field of attention on a part of the person, and the action happens far away from you, and you look at that person, and you see them from far away, but you focus on their face, let's put it this way. But you are standing far away from them, like distance wise, and then but your eye still kind of like just concentrates on like the part of their body where just their faces, and because you're trying to see really their emotion and what is really going on, and you're like really concentrating on that. It would be kind of resembling how like a long lens would capture them, but the long lens also stands for, let's say, the distance between you and the person or the object that you're observing. And the very wide lens would, very wide lens, let's say 24 millimeters, 30 millimeters, 28 and 35, like when the person is closer to you, and you would still see them like this, but they're closer to you, they're like in close proximity to you, but you still can choose not to concentrate your attention on just like, let's say, their nose or the nose, yeah, but like on their whole face, they're closer to you. And that will maybe be more like using a 24 millimeter lens. And so how and then so you go and you film your actors and you film their face, right? So you just concentrate where you just see their face with 24 millimeter simulation lens on your phone, and then like 100, and you see how that later changes your perception and your kind of like how intensely the emotion is felt. How does that change the emotion? And then you go and film the same thing with and you frame them, let's say, in their full body, or like an American till maybe like till their thighs. And you see how that changes everything, right? How that changes the emotion, the empathy. So if you have two people, for example, arguing, and now I suggest that you film their face with a 50 millimeter lens, which is like what people say is like the approximately the closest to the human eye, whatever that means. But let's say you film them with 50 mil, like, because it has the least distortion, with 50 millimeter their face, and like during an emotional moment, and then keep the same lens but move further away with the camera, with your phone's camera. You move further away and you film them like full size, and the two actors that you're working with still having an argument. And how How does that change what you are feeling? And I'm going to bet that obviously when you film their face closer, you feel much more connected, much more affected, much more empathetic. And when you move further away, it can almost, an argument can become comic because you don't see the face so much. And then you go and try and film like more frontal and more from a side and from below and from the up and from behind, and see how that makes you feel. Like the same line, the same choreography, the same more or less same emotion, right? How does that change things? And then you will understand what is the visual language of filmmaking is. And then you film objects as well, and you film not faces but also, like, you know, the movements of hands and the details of, like, I don't know, cup, for example, and the elements of the space that the actors are in. And then you take all of that and you edit yourself. And even though it's really, really important for directors to work with editors, because we get too much in our head and we don't know anymore what's right and wrong and what's good and bad. Yeah, I mean, watching our own films is like we never see them as audience really does, but still. Still, it's really good to then take all of this footage, the same scene shot in, like, with all different lenses and angles and camera positions and proximity and distance, and see how it changes the emotion and how it changes the perception of what's going on, and how you can manipulate the perception of the audience with just changing these things while the actors are doing the same thing, doing the same lines, doing the same choreography. How you can change the perspective, because that is really a perspective, right? Because it's the perspective of the human eye. Yeah. And then you will understand what is film directing, because that is film directing. And I would advise to any I guess person beginning their journey in directing to forget production value and even forget writing, because you wouldn't know whether you suck at writing or directing if you also write and direct your own stuff when you're beginning. So take something that's well written or not been written by you that you find somewhat decent, or at least take, like, you know, the dialogue that's not, it's like so simple that it can't be bad, and then you can write it. But better take an existing script. There are a lot of scripts available online, something that is proven to be good, so you don't really question, is it my directing bad or is it the writing, because the writing should be good, and then your directing, you will see whether that's good or bad. And take the actors with some experience, and like I say, don't have to be professionals. If you don't have access to professional actors, go to amateur groups. There are a lot of amateur groups. Post online, say I need 2 people to practice, and there will be acting students willing to practice. Or I don't know, like, you know, I'm sure if there's a school, like not an acting school, but like a school, you know, and they have a drama club or something, ask them to help you. So somebody who can act, repeat the same lines exactly the same, and the same choreography, that is movement, in the same space, and a phone and one of those apps that simulates lenses. That's what you need. And then of course, an editing app, but there are also free solutions, like I think DaVinci has a very good free version from what I know. I do not use it though, but it seems to me it's quite good, and there are other ones. What else? No, I guess that's it. I mean, that's how you start with film directing. And a separate step is, of course, working with actors, but that is completely separate, and that is next. But first, you find your visual language. You understand what lenses means, what the proximity means, how how camera influences the emotion. So yes, so that is the one big piece of advice that I wish somebody would have given me when I was 18 and starting film school, and nobody somehow told me this, and this is so obvious. Well, hope it helps someone.